I am so thrilled to have with us today just such an extraordinary woman that I met earlier this year. I think you're really going to enjoy our chat together. We talk about everything from Système D, which I talk about in my book, The French Ingredient, to the education system in France, to what it's like to go through a massive personal and professional transformation like she's done. She's just really a bright spark and has got so many wonderful things to share. And if you come to Paris, you must visit her studio Bloom. I'm not going to give all the secrets away because you'll want to listen to the episode, but she talks us through just this amazing journey she's gone through to present day being the founder of one of the first modern meditation centers in France. I think you're going to absolutely love Eugenie, who I call Jeannie. So I'm so pleased to welcome Eugenie Lambert Buckstein. Thank you for joining.
Welcome to Generate Her. I'm Jane Bertch. I spent the first half of my life working in a corporate organization, and then I decided to trade that all in to become an entrepreneur. Yes, here in your favorite city of Paris, France. And today, I hope I'm a guide on your journey to personal reinvention and transformation. So welcome to Generate Her, Eugenie, who I love to call Jeannie. I think that's so appropriate because you are absolutely magical. I'm so thrilled to have you with me today to share you with our little community. And why did I want you to come here so desperately? Because you have such a unique story. And I'm so grateful that I got to meet you thanks to Cecilia and a wonderful workshop that you hosted for us.
Thank you so much for having me, Jane. I'm so happy to be talking to you today.
Excellent. So let's start with, tell me a bit about yourself. Tell me what I don't already know.
What you don't already know, well, maybe you know now because I messaged you just a few minutes ago about my kids.
Yes.
I have 2 young daughters who are 6.5 and 3 years old, and they are the joy of my life. I love them so much. And apart from that, so I am a meditation teacher, and I was previously a journalist and also jurist, so a legal advisor. I studied law in the past, and here I am today. And I love cooking, actually. It's one of my passions, and I love running and doing Pilates.
Okay, and the piano, from what?
And the piano, and actually I have a piano behind me in this room.
Excellent. So you just wrapped up what's a pretty extraordinary career into a few seconds. So we're going to dig into that because you were not just a journalist, you've lived internationally, you worked for CNN International, you have a background in law. All of those things feel very heavy and weighty. And I know that they take years of study and focus. Who is that Eugenie, and who is she today? And how did that transition happen?
Wow. I love that question. Thank you for asking. So I come from a family of people that are all lawyers or legal advisors. And so there's a tendency in my family to try to convince ourselves that we are made for this. And since I was a small kid, I think I always had a sense of justice in my heart. Justice is something that's so important to me. And so I saw my parents thriving as lawyers, starting from scratch, and it really inspired me to, maybe this is the path for me. And my parents were so convinced. I mean, I'm the first of 4 kids, that I was made for this. So I really followed their path. But at the same time, also, since I was a kid, I had 2 other dreams: become a journalist and present the, what we call the news hour, the main news hour in France, le 20 heures, which is really a big rendezvous for I think everyone in France to just sit down after a long work day and just watch the news. And so I wanted to become that person that was going to bring the news to the French people, which is a really big role here. And then I wanted to also open a restaurant. So all those dreams together, maybe a lawyer, maybe working for an NGO, maybe a journalist. And so I think with time, I realized that law was great. But I also saw that it was taking so much out of my parents at the same time. And I was really still super attracted to the idea of showing the truth to people in the same way as, that sense of justice, but through journalism. And so I finished my law studies and I kind of like made a deal with my parents who are both lawyers. So it's really hard to like negotiate with them.
I can imagine that must have been quite a feat.
Exactly. So I made a contract with them and I told them, if I finish my law studies, am I allowed to become a journalist? And they were very scared for me. They're like, we have no contacts. We cannot help you in journalism. We know this is very hard. You're very sensitive, okay, if you're really sure about it, finish your law studies and then do it. And so I finished my master's in Paris with La Sorbonne and Assas. And then I went, I got into a journalism school in the UK, in London, called City University. And they have an international journalism program that's actually amazing. So I did this program. And after a year of that, I was so happy. I loved the program. I was so ready to become a journalist. And I became freelancing. Freelancer for 1 year in Canada because my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, I met in Canada. And so there's actually something funny I'll tell you after. So I met him in Canada. Then I moved to Canada for 1 year, got a work permit called a working holiday visa. And then I freelanced for like 3 different news outlets, French speaking radio in Toronto. Then I worked for TV in Toronto. Then I also worked for a French newspaper there. And it was, I will just say it, not super interesting.
Okay.
But
okay.
It got me to, used to like writing articles, talking on the radio or on TV and like understanding really the environment.
Sure. And let me pause for a second because what you're telling me sounds very typical for somebody from North America. And I want to talk about this for a second because one thing I'm always trying to share is the cultural differences that I've been exposed to that I was not aware of. I have a liberal arts degree. And every time I tell somebody who is one of my French comrades that has studied maths for 30 years that I have a liberal arts degree, their eyes get big because they can't understand what is a non-specialist. And their eyes also get big when I tell them I've changed careers. So you've just glossed over something that I think is so incredible because I know in France, professions are lifelong pursuits and contacts are so important and your réseau is so important. So for you to break code, to say, I don't want to be a lawyer, I don't want to follow this path, and to have the courage and a contract to pursue something different is actually quite hard in France. It's not easily done. So I want to make sure we look at that. How did you have the courage to move forward? And that's a lot of pressure. I know that.
It is a lot of pressure. And thank you so much for saying that. I literally have goosebumps because it's nice that someone recognizes that from the outside because it took a lot of courage, I have to say. And especially, I think being the first kid of 4, there's a lot of expectations on
Absolutely.
me. I was
a lot of pressure.
Exactly. And showing the path for my siblings too. And my parents were very worried, but in my heart, I was super sure. And I think I always was also like, I was quite good at English in school. And I can't really understand why, because, the French are not really good at English. So I just loved it. And I watched so many shows and read so many books. And my dad really made me listen to music in English to really help me. And my dad works for an American law firm, which I think confirmed that link with the US, with Canada, with the UK. And so I actually interned, I've never said that, I think, at the Senate in the United States for a US senator.
Did you?
Because I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into politics. And so I did a little bit of like politics in the US and in Canada. In Canada, it was fun too, but it was very different. The Senate was just an epic, experience. And I worked for Senator Collins, Susan Collins from Maine, for a few months, and she became such a role model for me too. It was great. So anyway, so going back to that, I think I just had this intuition, and the person that helped me the most with that intuition was my mom. She saw that I was unhappy going to law school, and I really had this dream, and she really supported me. And she was like, "I don't think Eugenie's happy here. I think she speaks English so well. She needs to move, and let's just see what happens to her." Like they know that we have a word in French, débrouillarde, that that I can.
Yes, Système D. I love. This is okay. You've led me into something that I'm always trying to explain to people. How do you explain? I talk about it in my memoir, actually. There's almost a whole chapter on this beautiful concept. And I think it speaks so much about French people, even though I find them to be very carré, as we say, sometimes very square.
Yes.
They break rules all the time. They don't drive straight. There's no such thing as a formed line. And so I see that as the sense of Système D, which is like, I'm going to find my way to get there.
Yes.
I mean, how would you explain it?
That's exactly it. I think I think my grandma always said that, like, we have a saying too, if you can't get through the door, go through the window. I think that's really, the philosophy that we have. And my grandma was always like, you'll always find a way. And if you fall down, you'll always like stand up. And my dad always said that to me too. Like, you need to stand up, and like, we don't stop here. We always learn. And I think that really reassured me. And I think after having also, the master's degree in journalism, my parents were like, okay, at least she has like 2 degrees now. She can maybe like try to see what's going on for a few years. And then if she doesn't, like, my parents were always like, if you don't like journalism, you can always go back to law. And so that was like the safety net.
Right.
So I think that helped them also. And for me, like my parents are so important. We're very close in my family with my siblings, sometimes a bit too close. But it's very important. My parents are people that really, I feel like, gave everything to us, but also are so passionate about their job that it's inspiring. I mean, there are some flaws too, because they're sometimes a bit too much into work. And that's where I'm like, you should try to meditate.
Yes. Yes. So that's a perfect foray. I want to kind of take that fil rouge and just remind people. So you were, you studied to be a lawyer. You come from a lawyer background. You decided you didn't want to do that. That took a lot of courage. Then you went to journalism school. You've lived internationally, and the genie, again, magic, that I know today runs the first modern meditation center in France.
Correct.
How did that come to be?
Okay, so that happened after starting at CNN. So I really felt like I manifested a dream, because I always wanted to work at CNN.
Okay.
And so after 1 year of freelance in Canada, I told my boyfriend at the time, I was like, I just need to move back to Europe. There's so many more opportunities for me. And there's more news outlets, like in London where I studied, there was the BBC, there was the Times, there was like CNN also had their international anchor. So I was just like, okay, I need to go back there. And my friends were all working for different news outlets there. And they were like, what are you doing in Canada? And I was like, I'm there for love. And they were like, maybe bring your love over here.
Exactly. Yeah. I was going to say, don't take sand to the beach, but in this case, yes, take sand to the beach. Bring your love back with you.
Exactly. And that's what I did. And thankfully, my husband has UK ancestors. And so he managed to get ancestry visa, which is the best visa I think you can get in the UK, because you can stay for as long as you want. And so he moved 6 months after I started working at CNN, because I got an internship first for 2 months. And then right when I started at CNN, not right when I started, but like in the middle of it, I remember the Paris attacks happened. And it was at the same time like something absolutely horrible for me also personally, because it touched my country and the town that I'm from. And I also had a situation where my brother was really close to the Bataclan, so he lived a lot of it. And it was just super personal. And at the same time, I still managed to do my job really well. And so CNN was so happy that they offered me a job after this. And it was great for me. It was my dream. The person that really inspired me to get into CNN was Christiane Amanpour, and I ended up working with her. So it was
wow. Okay, she is an icon. Wow.
I mean, I still love her so much, and she's still my number one. And for me, it was like a pinch me moment. I remember my interview was in her office, not with her, but like with the person who became my boss when I started producing. And I was looking at all the Emmys, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, to meet her it's funny because we have ideas of role models. And I just did a post on this not long ago because I grew up with the term role model.
Yes.
And I'm afraid now that's being confounded with the word influencer in people that should be influencing you to do positive things. And sadly, I feel like social media has changed that a bit, where our values of what we should be influenced by have shifted.
Yes.
Slightly, sometimes not always in the right direction. But every time I think about role models and I pick people who I don't know, and I cherry pick. So Christiane Amanpour is just an absolute icon in so many ways. So to know that you worked with her is quite incredible.
It was incredible. Honestly, I couldn't believe it myself. I was like, my dream was to work with her. And I watched a lot of Gilmore Girls when I was growing up. And actually my daughter is named Rory, the second one, which is one of the girls in Gilmore Girls. And Rory is a fan of Christiane Amanpour. And so it was so funny. And Christiane Amanpour shows up in the show as her role model. And I was like, this is so crazy, literally. And she was so inspiring. Just the way her mind works is incredible. And just to be around her, you just learn. Every conversation you just learn. It was amazing. So that was great. And so I think I wanted to become a war correspondent. That was really something I wanted to try. And I was so impressed. I think because I was hypersensitive, but I didn't know also at the time, a lot of hypersensitive people go towards jobs like in NGOs, journalism, even law. It's something like, again, the sense of justice and helping others comes first. And I think that's what I wanted to do with journalism. And I mean, being thrown in environments where, like terror attacks, where people had just lost their close ones, or so many people were dead. It was just, it was really overwhelming for me. And I think seeing this and witnessing this happen in my country so often, from the moment the Paris attacks happened, and Charlie Hebdo before that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just really overwhelming. And I ended up covering, the Brussels attack, Berlin, Nice. And there was just a lot of, it was trying to make sense of everything. Like, there's so much grief. And at the same time, what we show as journalists sometimes is also what people want to click on. So what's the limit between showing information and kind of like feeding fear,
Right.
There's that thing I think that we have to really think about. And at the same time, the media industry is not doing well. So there was just so many things in my head. And I think I just absorbed too much of people's sadness around me. And I didn't know how to set healthy barriers. And that's how I started developing one, PTSD, and then hypothyroidism.
Okay.
And so hypothyroidism has like very clear symptoms. And that happened like the first day I worked on the Paris attacks. It was super clear. I had like some heart arrhythmia, and I was young, and I was like, what's going on? This is very strange, And so the good thing is that I'm very aware of like symptoms, I guess, of my body, or I really listen to my body. So started talking to a cardiologist, and the cardiologist was like, you're fine, you're healthy, like what's going on? And he's like, maybe you're thyroid. Then I saw a thyroid specialist, and they were like, actually, this is an emotional shock. And there's no other like explanation for this. It's just an emotional shock. And I was like,
okay.
So maybe my job is not compatible with myself, And it was like, oh, no.
But
way.
You know what? That takes strength. That takes strength. I know a lot of people, myself included, that took a long time to understand that. And I know a lot of people that never understand it. They're still where they are, very unhappy, feeling stuck, feeling that they don't have courage, which they do, but just unsure of how to take those steps. So how did you then say, okay, meditation is for me, and I'm going to make a beautiful business out of it. Not just meditate every morning before you go to this job that's slowly draining you. You actually left.
Yes. So it was not easy, because I think that was one of the hardest thing in my life, was to give up that dream of journalism, because I realized it was not made for me. And I was like, okay, so law is not really made for me, or the way law is practiced is not made for me. Now, journalism seems to be a problem. And I was like, I got into CNN, which was my dream. I don't know what else I can do. What else is bigger than CNN? You know what I mean? And so many of my friends were working there. And so many of my friends are now like also war correspondents, or just like my friend Bernie is the BBC White House correspondent. It's just like so many of my friends are like amazing journalists and doing their job so well. And I think the fact that I was just hypersensitive was just too much for me.
Right.
Realizing at some point, also, I think, so my husband and I got married during that period of time when I was working at CNN, and he was super happy for me, but he also saw what nobody else could see.
Sure.
The sadness, the symptoms of hypothyroidism, which makes you super tired, a bit cranky, and really the heart arrhythmia is very scary. And it would happen like in the newsroom when I had like a peak of adrenaline, I would like feel that. And I was dreading just being sent to another terror attack where I had to talk to like families of victims. And I just didn't want to bother people,
Right.
And so I think I was really questioning myself about what can I bring that's good to this world. And at this time, when I started feeling the first symptoms, I talked about it to two people at work, one also being my boss, and they both suggested meditation. And one of them recommended downloading Headspace, which I did. Okay. And I remember walking home from Oxford Circus, because CNN's office were at the time near Oxford Circus. So there's always so many people there. It's like super overwhelming. And I remember walking and downloading it on the street and walking home, like not taking the subway to take a moment to try and meditate at this time. And then I was like, I don't think this is going to work for me. And I remember just saying to myself, oh, there's a 30-day challenge. Okay, you know what? I'll try.
Okay.
And so I clicked on it and I did it a little bit every day. And I have to say, it's not comfortable. And I think that's the thing that you have to get over when you start meditating. It's not, we all have this idea that when you start meditating, for some reason, you're going to feel relaxed instantly. That's not how it happens. It's really a training of your mind. And so I think after 30 days, I can't say that I was still comfortable in the practice of meditation, but I could see the shift outside of the practice, actually. And I was like, wow, those 10 minutes actually have an impact on my day. I felt better, like my emotions feel like more managed. My stress is like a little bit lower, or at least I don't get people get to me so fast. I can set like better barriers. And so the shift started happening, and I started just becoming really interested in meditation. And then I became pregnant, and I felt so much more anxiety than I thought I would during pregnancy. And I felt guilty and ashamed. It was weird. I was like, I don't know who I should tell, or talk to about those things. I just feel I had questions like, am I going to be a good mom? Like I was the first of my friends to become pregnant. So I was like, I had nobody else to talk about it with. And it just felt like overwhelming. And that's really the moment that I decided to just dwell like in that topic and just become like more of a meditation person. Like, because after I did the 30-day challenge, I would just use meditation when I felt bad. And then I was like, I'm just going to try to do it every day, a little bit every day. And that's when really I saw a big shift in welcoming this new stage of my life, and just feeling more at peace with myself and the fact that maybe I was transitioning and it was okay. And so we moved back to Paris, and that really allowed me to shift, I have to say.
Okay.
I was supposed to like, I mean, I told my boss like really a month before, I was like, I'm going back to Paris. And she was like, what? And I was ready for her to say, okay, well, it was so good to work with you, like have a good life.
Yeah.
And she was like, let's work together in Paris. And I was like, what? Really? Okay. So they set up everything and they knew I was pregnant. So I could work remotely from my home. And it was honestly amazing. So I worked still, I think 2 years with them, 2018 and 2019.
Okay.
From the comfort of my own like house. And then I would still, I covered like, you know, the Notre Dame fire and a bunch of like other big things like the Gilets jaunes, the yellow vest.
I have talked about every single one of these subjects in my memoir. I feel like you are
I need to read it.
Reading chapters of my book here. And you know what? Let me just pause for a second, Jeannie, because we've got so many parallels, which is amazing. I lived in London for many years. I worked in a bank, and hearing you say, okay, I didn't like law, then I liked journalism, and then I got to a certain point in journalism and I felt like it wasn't for me. I've been there. And that's so scary. It's so scary because I spent so many years of my life negotiating with myself and scratching to get to a certain point. And everybody knows that of you. That's your identity. You know, that's what your family know of you. That's what your friends know of you. And then one day to realize I don't belong here. And mine also happened because of family trauma. It's just so scary and unsettling. And to make that change is just, it's incredible. So I'm in awe of you. That's
amazing. I need to interview you. I want to know about your story now.
Yeah, well, we'll do that over wine, though, not on a podcast.
This is amazing. Thank you for sharing, because really, it's not easy, like you said. But I think for me, and probably it was the same for you, it was really that intuition that I just felt like something was still big for me. Like I could still do something really big, and that was okay, because I felt like in journalism, for some reason, I was like, this environment doesn't fit with me, with my values, with what I want to bring to the world. And I think bringing a baby into the world, I felt like, what am I going to give her? You know, when I'm not here and she's there, what's this world going to be like? And I was like, I don't want her to be scared.
Right.
And I think I have so many fears. And I think as women, we have even more fears than men do. And that's something actually that I talked about with my husband recently. I was like, are you scared when you walk home at night? And he's like, no. And I'm like, I'm so scared. I have so many fears. And it's just, I don't want to add more fears about, you know, terror attacks, all those things. Of course they happen, but if we think about it too much, then we don't live.
Right.
I just didn't want my daughter to just feel this way. And so I was like, I'm just going to do something that helps people feel better. And what helped me? Well, meditation. So let's just dig into that first. And so I'll say the first business idea I had, because I loved doing my nails at the time, and you're going to laugh so loud at this because it's so funny. I was like, I'm going to start nail salon where people can meditate.
Yeah, I think that's a fabulous idea, actually, because sometimes I have these awkward moments where I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't really want to talk.
Yes.
I'm using it as time to like think.
Yeah.
And a meditation salon where you don't have to talk and you actually are just getting your nails done, but you're in this pleasant, wonderful world. That's fabulous. I love that.
Thank you. So I had this like very specific idea in my mind. I don't know. Have you ever walked into the Hermès store at Sèvres, Babylone?
Yes. Yeah.
I love that store with the wooden structures. And I imagine like some kind of like wooden pods where people could just sit and like listen to meditation and then maybe do it during their treatment too. So, and then I was like looking into like starting a non-toxic nail polish brand. And then I went to like trade shows and stuff. And then I was like, actually, it's impossible to make something like super clean, like really, really super clean. It's impossible. And I was like, Eugenie, really? You know, what you love is meditation. Just don't be scared. Just do that. You don't need something else to add.
But you know what? It's hard not to be scared. And I want to, because you're just talking so elegantly about such profound things. One, listening to your intuition. When I started my business, the idea came up at a New Year's Eve party with friends when we were just looking for fun things that we could do. and of course, probably at that same party, I said I wanted to be a professional tap dancer. I mean, it wasn't like, let's do a business plan. It was just dreaming. And then my intuition kept bothering me about this. So I pursued it. So you've talked about intuition, which is just getting in tune and understanding and following those little snowflakes that drop down and looking at them and saying, what does this mean? And not just shoving it off to say, that's impossible. Because had I have said that, a gal from Chicago that doesn't really speak French, doesn't know much about French culture, doesn't cook, to start a cooking school in France is actually probability very low, right?
I love this.
But like you just said, I'm going to sit with this and I'm going to trust myself. And that's wonderful. And I think that's what people need to hear about your story, because that's beautiful and that gives hope.
Thank you. And I think also that we don't need to beat ourselves up about the past and like experiences with where we feel like maybe we failed, like law, like I think all those experiences brought me here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those were steps in your journey.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the word. Steps in the journey. And same for you, I think it's it's a beautiful thing to learn to listen to your intuition, even if at some point it feels like we say in French, like a bad note, suddenly, something doesn't feel right anymore. That's okay. For 5 years, maybe it felt great.
Yeah.
And now you just want something different.
Absolutely. And you know what I think of? We are different people every day.
Yes.
I will be a different person because of the conversation I had with you and the things that you remind me of that I love and I cherish as values. So how could you be the same person you were 5 years ago? And we beat ourselves up for the fear of expectations, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you said something also interesting. You said about our identity. And I think there's something really strong also in France. I mean, I assume it's the same also in the US and in American culture, but it's really like your status. And so when you're a lawyer, you have a status.
Yes.
When you're a journalist, you have a status.
Yes.
When you're a meditation teacher, what are you?
Well, this is where I want people, this is why I had to come back to this huge change you made, because I've really come to understand that in France, that status is very important. Your profession says so much about you. And to make changes is very difficult. And you've done that so beautifully and with grace. And you've created this beautiful thing for people called Bloom. So tell me about Bloom.
Thank you. Oh, that's so nice to hear this. Really, Bloom came from my heart. And even just the word Bloom, French people are like, why did you use another English word? I'm like, well, first of all, I speak English at home with my husband and my kids. English is part of like my identity too now, even though I'm French. And the word Bloom is just so soft and beautiful. And there's this idea in the word Bloom that it's never ending,
Yes.
It's like the flower is opening, but it's a process and it's not like, she's open or, she's closed. It's like, she's still opening.
Right.
It's still happening.
Yes.
And so it's the same for meditation. You can do it one time and it's going to be great for you. But if you do it a little bit like here and there regularly, it's just a practice that you have to come back to. And I think there's this sense of like courage also in meditating. So Bloom originally, to talk about how I became also a meditation teacher, I started like just becoming really interested in the topic. I did a first cycle that's called the MBSR. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm not.
It's called, so it's basically an 8-week cycle that's called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Program, MBSR, that was started by an American doctor called John Kabat-Zinn, who first started to how can I say this, test the benefits of meditation on his patients in oncology. And he realized that it was amazing for like stress management. And then with his colleagues, he was like, why do we need to just give it to sick people? We can give it anybody like is affected by stress. And so that's really where it started with University of Massachusetts. And they started this program, this MBSR program, which became really the most scientific mindfulness program there is. And so I followed that in Paris, and I was like, I have goosebumps right now talking about this. I was like, this program is so well thought, made by a doctor. I trust him, and the French love doctors too. We're like,
yes, I know. Anybody who's an expert, the French love. Expertise is king.
Exactly. That's so true. And so I really listened to John Kabat-Zinn almost as a god. I was like, this guy, he's just, I put my finger on it and I was like, yes, that feels right. And so I really got interested in MBSR cycles. So basically I wanted to become an MBSR teacher. So I trained with Brown University. They have like a bunch of cycles online to train. And I was just interested in that. And I think, so that was the program for University of Massachusetts that was bought by Brown. And I was like, oh, Americans, they're just so advanced, like they're thinking forward, they have it all. And so I trained, and I have to say the Brown program was amazing. All the resources, because meditation is not just a practice, it's also, I think, a philosophy of like slowing down and just enjoying the present moment. And that's what really I loved. And I felt like the people that I met during this course also were just like me. Their life was going so fast, and suddenly they paused and they were like, wait a second, I can pause like more often in my life. And that's actually amazing.
Right.
And so that's how I became a meditation teacher. And then so Bloom, the idea of Bloom was to gather people, because I feel like in our society, we lose the sense of togetherness. Everybody's on social media, which is great because we all need to be on social media, but then it puts some distance between us too, because we're not together physically.
Absolutely.
And so I think what you created too is like bringing people together, right?
Yes, that's it. And the common subject is, let's talk about that just for 1 second, because you have so beautifully, 4 things I love to talk about, Jeannie, are, to me, these are foundations for risk. And I use the word risk generically because every day is a risk. Every decision I take, do I respond to that email or not? Am I going to have this meal or not? Am I going to shoot off a message to Jeannie to see if she wants to be on my podcast? Every little thing is a risk, and we decide how some are huge, right? And the 4 pillars that I love that help me are creativity, courage, curiosity, and community. And you have managed, without me prompting you, to talk about every one of those things. So if I talk about community and why that's so important, which we're looking at now, we're in a world where things are divisive, they're stressful, they're tenuous, and a lot of people have different feelings about them. But if you can create a space that no matter what your beliefs are, we come together and we're us, not them or those people. We're us for that 1 hour of meditation. That's beautiful. And that's what you've done. I don't know if that would...
I have goosebumps. This whole interview, I have goosebumps. It's crazy. It's
good.
Like, it's not even cold in my house. I don't understand. It's amazing.
But that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I think it's, even through your story, the people that have taken time to share with you and encourage you maybe saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself. I'm here in Paris because somebody that I respected said, Jane, you know what? You should try this. And I tried that thing and it worked for me. And that's how I got to Paris. So the person that said, try meditation, thankfully, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So thankful for that, actually. And I remember thinking, one of them, she came to visit in Paris at some point, and I was like inviting her on this boat that's called Rosa Bonheur that has changed a little bit.
I know Rosa Bonheur. I've been wanting to go there, by the way. You'll have to take me.
Let's grab a drink there together.
Okay.
That'll be nice.
Yeah.
And it's just so nice because there's the sighting of like the Eiffel Tower. You're near Invalides. There's that beautiful bridge, Pont Alexandre III, and just so much beauty for your eyes. And we just talked about things, and I was like, I have to thank you for telling me to just download Headspace, because I really thought it was not going to work, but it changed my life. And
yeah.
And I think you also said something. You talked about curiosity, and curiosity is the number one quality we look at when we start meditating.
Interesting.
Yes, curiosity is something that so many people are not curious anymore.
Yeah.
They just let things happen to them.
Yes.
But I think it's something that's within us, and we had it when we were kids. And I think just being curious and not like just putting things, you say like French, like carré, put things into boxes and stuff. Like just, it's okay. Just do the experience. Stop saying it's not for me. Just try.
Just try. You're absolutely right. I think, if I also on the flip side of this, I'll admit something to you. We start out as curious beings. You can look at children. They approach everything with such a fresh eye and they want to pick it up and study it. And I try every day to remind myself to do that because that makes me a better person. When I'm not a better person is when I'm afraid to try and I'm not even curious enough to care. That's when I'm not a good person. And when I'm really not a good person is when I think I already know everything.
Yes.
When I'm a know-it-all, I'm real hard to deal with. So being in a situation where I can't be curious and I'm not fueling it is just not good for me.
Yes.
I have to fight that. Mm-hmm. How do you stay curious?
I think really it is meditation.
Okay.
And it's just a beautiful feeling. And I think it's a sign also, not to, like we say in French, throw flowers to myself, but like, it's a sign
say it in French. Say it in French, because I know our crowd will love to hear it.
And so jeter des fleurs, when you say something nice about yourself, it's like the French don't like that people show that, but at the same time, they want people to feel confident. It's so strange. We're so full of contradictions. So anyways, so I think it's a sign of intelligence to say, I don't know, and I'm curious. And it's okay if it doesn't work for me, and maybe I'll try again. And I think that's really a beautiful thing that meditation helped me with, was that it's not just, and I think that's what I was trying to do with Bloom too, to show people a modern way of practicing. Right. Because we all, especially the French, have like Buddhist centers, which is great. And really the root of meditation comes from Buddhism. So I think we have to really honor it. But we can do it in a way that you said, a place for anybody, any religion, any faith, any belief. You just come here, you sit, and you just be yourself, and you be in tune with what's going on inside. And so many people, the first time they sit at Bloom, so for so many people, they just feel a lot of emotions because they're like, I haven't sit in silence in so long. And it's always like noisy around me in my head. It's like people always talk about it. I'm always distracted, and distractions is the new topic. Our attention is, under siege. It's just always so many distractions, especially for new generations. And when they get bored, what do? They take their phone, they check out Instagram or I don't know, TikTok, whatever. And it's okay if you manage to use that just a few times a day, but then we don't get curious, and our creativity also is threatened, because I always say that getting bored is actually so important for you.
Yes.
Because that's when you're going to think about new things, and you're going to be like, okay, what about this idea or that? Getting bored is so important to push yourself and to push your creativity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we don't do enough of it. We're always trying to fill every minute with something.
Exactly.
And sitting with ourselves is hard. It's a big challenge, especially in, like you said, we've got so many distractions that are around us and that we've created for ourselves, i.e. a very noisy mind, which I tend to have.
Me too. Everybody, it's called the monkey mind. It's
monkey
like going from one branch to another, and you just jump and jump and jump. And especially, I feel like I think creative people have this mind where you have so many ideas all the time, and you don't even have time sometimes to put them on paper. It feels like, that feeling of FOMO, like, oh, maybe I should have done this, or it's crazy. It's a little bit overwhelming at times. But it's great. It's just a motor. So Bloom was really the idea, like you said, of community, and making people realize the sense of doing that activity together and sharing together. So always at the end of the practices, there is a time to share. And it's so interesting to see how so many people, the first time they come, don't want to share because they're shy. and it's very personal too. But then when you allow yourself to just share, it's something magic, and other people will say, you know what? Thank you for sharing, because I didn't want to share. And now I feel exactly like you. And it's just like, and sometimes like people become friends,
Yeah.
Yes. Taking a class. So that was really the heart of Bloom, was to help people also through our different senses. And that's why we have like 2 different rooms, like what I call the day room and the dark room, to play like with sight, with like sounds too in the dark room. And we have also the Himalayan salt room, where you can like smell. So all of your different senses are there. And that's really the experience of Bloom. It's like sound meditation, and also some movement classes that include a part of meditation, because movement is also something that, I'm going to say something. I find it very true, is that people use their bodies in a very mechanic way,
Yes.
to do things. And like dancing, for example, is an art that's actually amazing and very therapeutic for us. And it's the same. Like, I think for even doing like the way you brush your teeth, the way you'll close your shutters at night, it's always the same way. You do it mechanically without thinking. And I think finding a little bit of freedom in that again, and saying, oh, maybe I'll just like dance, and then I'll shut my shutters, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Just using our bodies in different ways. And because really our emotions can get stuck in the body. I really believe in that, somatic, like psychosomatic link. And it is just a fact. And so our emotions, if we don't liberate them, if we don't free them, they stay within us. And it's really important to just take care of that.
Yeah.
And meditation is great for that.
Well, Eugenie, I think that's the perfect way to wrap up this beautiful discussion. And in the spirit of sharing, thank you so much for sharing. I will include all of everything about Bloom and the new app that you have coming out in the show notes. Having been there myself, I can testify to what a beautiful center it is and the energy that's there. And for me, as a professional in the Paris world, it was such a relief and a release to participate in your workshop. Mm-hmm. Which does take a bit of vulnerability. You and I will, what happens in Bloom stays in Bloom.
Yes.
But it was such a wonderful experience and such a warm and beautiful environment that you've created. And what I love is it's open to everyone. So all of my Anglos that are worried about, do they need to speak French? No, they can get there and have a wonderful time as well. And
we have English speakers, teachers too, that will do.
I know you do.
English.
I know you do. And even if you don't, to just come in and sit in silence.
Yes.
Is wonderful. You'll just, we all have energies that talk to each other. We don't have to use our voices all the time.
That's so true. Thank you so much for saying
Eugenie, I'm so grateful to have you. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to see you at Bloom again soon.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much, Jane, for having me.
Thank you.